Hi everyone, sorry for the short hiatus I was on, but I'm now back and have tons of plans for the channel. As always, if you want to help out with the club and videos, mail me on Windstar. My name is Baruna PandaHill, and if you like the video, subscribe and leave a like. In today's video, we'll be going over the history of Jupiter Stars Equestrian Centre, so come along.
2, 3, funk it.
JSEC was initially founded by Steve Donpath and co-owned by Keith Applestep and Susanna PandaHill. To start, it wasn't a lesson barn, but it was actually a boarding barn. But some of the boarders did have their coaches come every once in a while to teach them. Susanna PandaHill was my grandmother, and I spent many days learning how to ride at the JSEC. The other owners had their own grandchildren too, Clara Donpath and April Applestep. Being the only kids at the JSEC, we quickly became friends and spent multiple days a week at the barn together, hanging out and riding. I remember back in the day it was actually called Steve's Farm, and at the time it only had one janky arena, a small barn, and a few fields. Although I miss the nostalgia of the place, I much prefer the updated look of our current barn. April, Clara, and I were best of friends all the way up until the last year of high school, which was bittersweet to say the least. After high school, we all ended up going our separate ways. April went to Jarlheim University to study business, and Clara went to Silverglade University to study barn management in order to take on the business when her grandfather passed away. Meanwhile, I took up an instructor position back when I was in high school, and when my parents got me my first car, I decided to become a private instructor on the side. Outside of working at a barn, I would travel across Europe to teach private lessons with students. As I became a better teacher, my lessons became quite high in demand, so I quit my job at the barn and decided to work as a private instructor full-time. I began working for extremely rich families in areas such as Jorvik Stable, Dundle, Firgrove, etc. Traveling so often became really tiring and I got super burnt out. I wanted to get an instructor job at a barn, but none were paying as good or better than what I was making, until I got a really interesting offer from an old friend.
Hey Rue, it's been a while. Last week, my grandfather Steve Donpath passed away, leaving me to be the owner of his barn, and I'd appreciate if you attended his funeral. Not only that, but I'd like you to become an instructor at the barn. My plan is to integrate the barn into a lesson barn and completely revamp it. April is already on board with the idea and we're making plans for the barn. Get back to me when we can discuss pay, etc.
Clara offered me more than what I was being paid as a private instructor. I would get to do the job I love and be with people I love. I would be the sole instructor, as Clara shared that she couldn't trust anyone else at the time. We ended up renovating the barn and added a new arena, round pen, pastures, and more. We also renamed the barn to Jupiter Stars Equestrian Centre. To give the lesson program a boost, I told many of the richer families that I was working for and all of my students about our new barn. Thankfully, most of my students followed me to the JSEC, and new students came from surrounding towns. Almost a year later, and the three of us are busy as ever, managing boarders, doing constant lessons, and organizing show teams. We decided that we were in need of some help, so Clara and April entrusted me with the task of hiring some instructors. I ended up picking two students of mine. The first was Mary Silverwolf, who would become a full-time instructor, and the second was Piper Waterbank, who would shadow my lessons and learn the ropes before beginning her time as a full-time instructor. At the moment, the owners and I plan to start a training program where we train and resell horses, and we have some other projects that are in the works that hopefully you'll get to see sometime soon. We have so many big plans for the future, and we can't wait to see how things will go.